Hi, this is Eric at Try Audio. Today we're going to compare three vintage receivers from the 1970s. We're going to look at and compare their specs, their looks, and most importantly, how they sound. Today's receivers are all of the low wattage variety. They are the Marantz 2015, the Harman Kardon 430 Twin, and the Onkyo TX-2500. Let's get started. The Marantz 2015 came out in 1974 and was rated at just 15 watts. This makes it the smallest of today's three receivers. The 2015 was preceded by the model 2010, and these two receivers are commonly referred to as being a baby Marantz. This was due to their small case size. At only around 14 inches wide, it made them about 4 to 6 inches narrower than most receivers. In an era where most manufacturers were pushing large units like the 4-channel quad receivers, the model 2015 was a bit unusual, but had the appeal of fitting in smaller spaces. What also made the 2015 unusual was that it had different features depending on when it was made. The first units had 4 buttons on the front and only one tape monitor. Then a second tape monitor was added and the text on the selector knob was changed to tape 2. After that, a 5th button was added for a high-frequency filter. Later, that was replaced with a Dolby FM function button. That means there were 4 different faceplates for the 2015 over its production run. The model 2015 retailed for $250, which is around $1,700 in today's money. You can pick one up today in the $300 to $500 range, depending on condition. The front of the Marantz 2015 is very attractive with a lot of functions. It has a phono input, an aux input, and 2 speaker outputs referred to as main and remote. My version has the single tape monitor with 2 tape inputs. But let's not forget the gyro touch tuning wheel, a Marantz staple. The back has the push-in type spring connectors for the speakers, 2 AC outlets, and your input and antenna connections. Note my version has 2 tape inputs but only 1 tape output, something that would change on later versions. The Harman Kardon 430 Twin was sold between 1976 and 1978 and retailed for around $320. During these years, Harman Kardon had 3 receivers in their lineup: the 330C at 20 watts, the 430 Twin at 25 watts, and the 730 Twin at 40 watts. These 3 replaced the 330B, 630 Twin, and 930 Twin from the early 1970s. The Twin designation in the name meant that the receiver had 2 power supplies, one for each channel. The Twin power supplies help with receiver performance, isolation, and noise reduction. This was a feature not normally seen in receivers at this price point. The 430's $320 price tag equates to about $1,800 in today's money. Today you can pick one up in the $350 to $600 range depending on condition. The front of the 430 Twin definitely had its own style. It's quite a bit different looking than the other 2 receivers we're reviewing today, with its black and green aesthetics. With a very tall AM/FM display and a very small signal meter, the 430 Twin had more of a late 60s vibe. Harman Kardon's receivers are definitely unique looking and don't get confused with any other manufacturer. As far as features go, it had 1 aux, 1 phono, and 1 tape input. It had 2 speaker outputs and high and low filters. Instead of a loudness switch, it had one for contour, which is essentially the same thing. The front metal plate is rather flimsy, thus the dent in the lower corner of mine, and the light on my power switch is burned out. The back has spring-loaded speaker terminals, 2 AC outlets, few speaker outputs, and an adjustable pot for adjusting the FM muting function. Probably a nice feature if you listen to a lot of FM. The TX-2500 was made from 1976 to 1978 and retailed for $300. It was rated at 27 watts and was mostly marketed with its bigger brother, the 55-watt TX-4500. By 1978, Onkyo was also selling the 110-watt TX-8500 and the 15-watt TX-1500 in this lineup. Later there would be the Mark II versions of these receivers that would come out in 1979. These Mark II receivers had different specs and looked different, but shared the model names with the original lineup. It wasn't the greatest idea and could lead to confusion about models all these years later. Since how well a receiver tuned in an FM station was a big deal then, Onkyo developed their own technology for this. Onkyo referred to the FM circuitry in the TX-1500 and 2500 as servo-locked, and that in the superior 4500 and 8500 as quartz-locked. The 2500 sold new for $300, which equates to around $1,700 in today's money. If you wanted to buy one today, you'd pay somewhere in the $200 to $300 range, making it the least expensive of today's 3 receivers. I want to point out first that my TX-2500 is going to look different than most. Starting with the tinted glass, mine got broken, and since I could not get an exact replacement, I eventually deferred to just using some untinted plexiglass. Not as cool looking, but better than nothing. Also, the vinyl wrap was peeling off of mine, so I replaced it with a wood laminate. I stained it a very light color in order to be different, but it didn't quite turn out as well as I'd hoped. The TX-2500 has one phono and two tape inputs. It does not have any aux inputs, but with two tape inputs, this takes care of most needs. It also has FM muting, a high-frequency filter, two speaker outputs, and a nice-looking signal and tuning meter. Unfortunately, the letterings on the faceplate are not etched, and they are prone to easily coming off these units. On the back, it has screw-down speaker terminals, two AC outlets, external speaker fuses, and your tape, phono, and Dolby adapter connections. Like the Harman Kardon 430 Twin, it also has the ability to adjust the FM muting sensitivity. You can see here how the Marantz is quite a bit smaller than the other two. It's still a very nice looking unit, and I can see why people gravitate to it. The Harman Kardon has its own style, which may put some people off. It doesn't light up near as much as the other two. It may seem unfair to compare the much smaller Marantz to these two, but keep in mind that when adjusted for inflation, all three of these cost about the same amount of money when new. As I mentioned earlier, the Onkyo originally came with a vinyl wrap on it. The Harman Kardon is just a metal case, and the Marantz is metal with a vinyl wrap. The Marantz could have been purchased new with an optional wooden case. So here they are with the cases off. The Onkyo 2500 is in the middle. The transformer is decently sized. The Marantz here is on the left, and for a smaller unit, this power transformer is nicely sized as well. Finally, the 430 Twin is two separate transformers, each with their own set of capacitors, and thus the twin designation. All three of these have fuse-style lights on the circuit boards that require removing some screws to access. It's been a while since I've replaced these, but if memory serves me right, the Harman Kardon and the Onkyo were not too bad to get to. The Marantz, however, was a bit more work, with the lights being down in there somewhere. Some quick notes first. I would stream a song to both receivers at the same time and then switch the speakers back and forth between the two using this Duke Audio switch. That allows you to hear the difference instantaneously between the two receivers. I did not listen to a phono input. I did not listen to the AM, FM, just music streamed to the aux input. I also volume matched them perfectly as well as I could. I had the loudness controls turned on, and I had the treble bumped up just a bit on the Harman Kardon, and I had the bass bumped up quite a bit actually on the Marantz in order to help them out for reasons I will get to shortly. I listened to three very well-produced songs for this comparison: In Between Days by The Cure, Taking It to the Streets by the Doobie Brothers, and On the Western Skyline by Bruce Hornsby and the Range. So the first comparison I did was the Onkyo TX-2500 and the Harman Kardon 430 Twin. The biggest difference between these two receivers is in the high frequencies. The Onkyo does a great job in putting those out. The Harman Kardon, not so much. The Harman Kardon comes off as a little bit veiled. For example, on In Between Days, there's an acoustic guitar that just kind of shines right through on the Onkyo, and that acoustic guitar on the Harman Kardon is just more melded in with all the other instruments. It doesn't have that instrument separation. This song is probably the one that shows the biggest difference between these two receivers. On Taking It to the Streets, the difference was not as big, but it was still there. Here, the difference is on the vocals. The vocals are just bigger and more expansive in the Onkyo than they are in the Harman Kardon. Again, with the Harman Kardon's more rolled off high frequencies, it's just not getting all that music pushed through. And then finally on the Western Skyline, this was probably the closest between these two. And if some people just really like deep thumping bass, which oddly enough that Bruce Hornsby song kind of has, you might prefer the Harman Kardon. But you just be ignoring the fact that the highs are just better also on the Onkyo. And the Onkyo has really good bass as well. So I'm giving it to the Onkyo. I'm giving all three songs to the Onkyo for its bigger sound stage and better, clearer highs. Next is the Onkyo TX-2500 and the Marantz 2015. Here the biggest difference is in the bass, or for the Marantz, the lack of bass. The Onkyo has really good bass, and the Marantz has really good highs and mids, but in a lot of these songs, man, you just miss that bass performance that the Onkyo is giving you. For example, and in between days, the drums just sound kind of weak and almost harsh when turned up on the Marantz, and they sound punchy and smooth on the Onkyo. Same for the other two songs. You know, it's just, I got to give all three of these songs to the Onkyo, and it's really just this little Marantz isn't pushing that bass out there that this, you know, this slightly bigger Onkyo is doing. So all three songs, Onkyo. And finally, we have the Harman Kardon 430 Twin and the Marantz 2015. The Harman Kardon didn't have the highs the Onkyo had, and the Marantz didn't have the lows the Onkyo had, so you know how this is going to go. On the first song, I'm going to give it actually to the Marantz for just getting that acoustic guitar better, more clear. It does a really good job in the mids and the highs, and that's not a bass-heavy song. So in between those two, I'm going to give it to the Marantz. The other two songs, a little more rocking, got a little more bass punch to them. I'm going to give it to the Harman Kardon for its ability to at least fill the room with loud, deep rock music. The Marantz isn't filling the room with loud, deep rock music at all. It might be great for some other types of music, but on these three songs, or at least these last two songs, definitely the Marantz was hindered by its bass output. To get a second opinion on these, I had my wife Laura listen to these as well, and she did not know my opinion at all going into this. So when she compared the Onkyo to the Harman Kardon, she preferred the Onkyo across the board. She thought the Onkyo had better highs, better sound stage, and that the Harman Kardon sounded a bit muffled and wasn't pushing all the music out there that the Onkyo was. Between the Onkyo and the Marantz, she thought the Marantz could sound a bit tinny and a bit harsh at times, and again, preferred the Onkyo. Between the Harman Kardon and the Marantz, she actually preferred the Marantz because she thought the Harman Kardon, again, wasn't pushing all the instruments out there and did sound a bit muffled compared to the Marantz. Well, to summarize, this is pretty obvious. The Onkyo is your clear winner here. Its ability to do bass and highs and mids, everything across the board much better than the other two. As far as your second place finisher, it kind of depends whether you like vocal music, jazz music. You would probably take the Marantz as your second place finisher. If you like deeper rock music, thumping bass, you'd probably go with the Harman Kardon. Personally, I go either way. They're a pretty distant second place compared to the Onkyo, so it doesn't really matter to me which one we take. As far as value goes, not only is the Onkyo the better sounding one, it's also the least expensive, so clearly the best value of these three. Hands down, you can pick one up pretty cheap, $200-300 maybe. Even if you paid more than that, it would be a good deal. This is a very well-performing receiver. Well, I just want to thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time.